As I watched this, as I'm sure many of you thought to yourselves, I thought to myself, was this always a film? Was this ever a play in your mind as you were coming up with the idea and actually writing it?
How many people are coming?
There'll be 4 of them.
Richard, Linda, this is Jay and Gail Perry.
Thank you for agreeing to meet us.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna leave you alone. Let me know if you need anything.
What would you like to know?
Everything. I want to know everything.
Why?
Why do I want to know about your son? Because he killed mine.
It's not our fault, Richard.
You know, the catalyst was the Parkland shooting, and I started researching this stuff with not the intention of making a movie, but just I felt like I needed to know what was going on. And so that was February 2018, and I had my first sort of final draft screenplay files in sort of late April, May. And then by the summer, I had shifted to a stage play because I felt, initially I just wrote it as a play. Judy pulled up to a church, and we were in a parish hall for 90 pages, and so I thought maybe this should be a play, but my heart was set on a movie, and ultimately I shifted back about a year later. It was shortly after February 2019 that I shifted back to a screenplay.
But it started as a screenplay.
Started as a screenplay, yeah. It was always, I wanted to make a movie, and I wanted to make a movie in a room in real time. My first sort of emails to people were, you know, no score, just practical music, uninterrupted, real-time conversation. Yeah.
And because this does feel as intimate and powerful as a great theater piece, I'd be curious to know, did you all 4 have the luxury of a long rehearsal? Was it a small budget so that you couldn't? What was that process like, and what did you find helpful about things that the 4 of you did as a cast before shooting?
We had 2.5 days of rehearsal. But what it really was going through text to make sure we all were on the same page, so to speak, what story we were telling. That was very helpful. And what happened over those 2.5 days was coming to trust one another and knowing that we were safe with one another. That's huge, huge. Plus, we had all been at it a while, you know, and we had our time in the theater, many, many hours in the theater. So I like to say we had our sea legs and our understanding of endurance, meaning just to take the breath and settle in. And then we went away for 3 weeks to our separate lives, and we came back. And during that period, we all did our personal work, as each actor works differently, learned our words, very important. And when we got there, it seemed to just flow. Fran set it up beautifully, making sure that all the time in the room was shot in sequence, 10 to 12 pages a day. Once the sun went down, our day was finished. That's kind of a lovely feeling, you know, we were light dependent. And then we would meet in the evenings to go over the next day. We were a very cohesive group, and were entirely comfortable with this gentleman at the helm. It just made it all possible.
It shows. Fran, obviously for your 4 actors, you had bodies of work to watch, and I'm sure conversations with them before hiring them, but how did you know in your heart of hearts that these 4 performers would sync up and gel as much as they did, or did you have to just take a leap of faith on that?
I never imagined actors of this caliber doing this. Truly beyond my dreams and expectations. Truly. It came together quickly as soon as I wasn't really getting the time of day sort of sending my script around as an actor, trying to get financing or just attention at all. And I put together, I hired a casting director, and I found a location, and I kind of had a time frame. And then things started to come together. Then it started to be a reality for agencies. And so I started to see lists. And I saw these actors' names, and it was, it was extraordinary. So we would take a chance and have, sort of luck out. And I had a call, or I met with Martha Plimpton sort of down the street from here. I had coffee with Jason Isaacs. Linda was the hardest role. I never, for some reason, could see I always had actors in my head writing. I never had that for Linda. I think it's possibly the complexity and sort of how challenging the role is. I'm not really sure. I like to think that I needed to have the location and the other three. After all, these characters are visiting Linda, right? That it's where she lives, not the other characters. So I think there might have been something to that. But of course, got this incredible person. And I want to speak, I have to say, this idea of this sort of crash course in intimacy that we tried to have in this rehearsal process, I knew we have to get really close. We have to be an ensemble, and actors are kind of incredible the way they want to be an ensemble. They sort of want to be a family, and I was hoping that I could sort of start that and break the ice by being vulnerable myself, but Ann really led the way and really sort of made that rehearsal process as successful as it was. I'm not just saying that because she's here, it's the truth. We talk about it all the time.
He talks behind my back, you have no idea. It's a disgrace.
But no, I'll tell you that, another thing, that it was table work, the rehearsal, right? We just went through the text to try to rewrite things to make, the journey more clear, to, really listen to their instincts and just rework things to make it, so they had what they needed. But Ryan Jackson Healy, my cinematographer, was also there testing camera lenses, and it just sort of fit. It was just a nice coincidence that most of the movie is at a table, so we were able to sort of shoot and test out our shots while they rehearsed and kind of talk through the text. And I remember about a week later, Ryan sent me this Dropbox, and I just sat there watching, and I knew we had it, because I could see right there. I thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna be special. They're so good.
Can I say one thing? I just thought of this, Fran. I received the script from my agent and manager. I knew nothing about it, and I knew when I read it, of course I would do it, and worried also, was I up to what was necessary there, the living in that level of grief in a way that would respect character and story and so on. But I had no desire to talk to you first. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to have a lot of chatter about it.
Oh, interesting.
I just knew, okay, all in. Just tell me when to come. And I loved that, the simplicity of it, If that makes any sense.
No, yeah. There wasn't a great deal. Other than that rehearsal, I tried to stay out of the room. We tried to treat it almost like a love scene, sort of, like only the essential people should be in the room. I had my first AD, I said, you call action, you call cut, like I'll come in if I absolutely have to, hair and makeup, don't do last looks unless it's absolutely necessary, like wardrobe continuity. I know they touched your scarf a lot, but and the effort was to leave them alone and kind of create a theatrical like experience for them as they did these 15, 20-minute takes, just let them exist in the world, and that we did our preparation before arriving,
Yeah. It's very well thought out.
Yeah, it's clear. I'm only going to ask one more question, and then I want to open it up to you also. Start thinking about what you want to ask these two. But Ann, I'd be curious to know, when you did read the script, when Gary sent it to you, your agent, Gary Gersh. I'm back. When you read the script, what was your reaction specifically to the beautiful kind of coda moment that your character Linda has at the end, where she does come back to tell that powerful story? What was your reaction to that?
Well, it was all foreign to me. I know that sounds odd, but I did not know who she was. I knew that I was very drawn to her and wanted to know her, but I didn't know how would she speak or anything. or what that ending meant. None of those things came into any clarity until we were doing it, be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I did my private work, which
Right.
however one does, you know.
So what answers did you come to then after embodying her?
I think she's an extraordinary person. I think when a life shatters as hers did, I guess you could go a couple of ways, couldn't you? You could build the wall back up, defend, close down, push away. She does none of that. I was very moved by her. I learned things from her. She's a very powerful presence. I'm grateful to her.
What would you all like to know? Yes, I see a hand right here. You have amazing hair.
Hey. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
We have one
great.
of Fran's old teachers here.
You must
for
be
those of you
awful
who can't
proud of him.
Oh no. Oh, that's so cool.
So those who couldn't hear, Fran's former video teacher very rightly is asking about the use of camera and sound and how it may
No, I
evolve
have
in
to
the film.
say it's so lovely to see you. I will talk. The last movie I ever made was in your class, you know, and I dreamed about making movies my whole life, and I would
wonderful.
sit around
Wow.
thinking, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you following this dream of yours? Why aren't you making this effort? And you know, that last insane movie I made with Gary Lundy in our like final project. But no, truly, I thought about that a lot. Anyway, just, you know, come on, do it already. And so yes, so the idea was a couple thoughts, I guess. I knew this was an endurance test. So I knew we had to start very wide, very still, very simple composition. We talked a lot about Yasujiro Ozu, this Japanese director, and you know, he's sort of known for these kind of, you know, simplistic, geometric, nice compositions and presenting life. There's real references. That first time you see The Room, it's a tatami shot. That's something sort of he coined of sort of, it's as if you're sitting on a tatami mat, if your eye level is as if you were sitting on the floor. That's how we sort of present The Room first. But you notice, if you notice, the first close-up's reserved for Martha Plimpton, the grieving mother. So we're slowly easing into the movie. And once we're in the room, we had a very simple setup. You know, we didn't want to overthink it. We talked a lot about My Dinner with Andre, and that here's a movie that works, and it's just about 5 or 6 setups. You know, it's just a couple a 2-shot and some singles. Like, let's not overthink it and reinvent the wheel. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a first-time director. I don't want to kind of, you know, overreach here. But we'd had this system, and we'd kind of moved maybe clockwise with the sun, you know, and kind of find, you know, we'd end shooting up against the wall where we didn't need sun. So we figured out a system, and then each day we'd sort of add new language to it. So we'd add sort of subtle movement. You know, when the photographs start being shared, we start little movements that sort of enters the language. And the idea was that we're trying to mirror and reflect the sort of emotional journey of the conversation, the sort of emotional state of the characters. They're more actively searching. We're going to be a little more focused more purposeful with our movement. Eventually we have very like sort of steady, you know, or conspicuous pans, right? And then eventually when Jason Isaac stands up to get some water and he's more frustrated, they've reached this impasse, we kind of shift into handheld, you know, and deteriorate. And then ultimately there's an aspect ratio shift where we went from spherical lenses to anamorphic lenses. And that was, the idea is that when this happened, their world changed forever. And when you lose someone dear to you, or some tragedy, real tragedy hits your life, it changes the way you see the world. Grief changes you and your perspective. And so we wanted to reflect that with a camera shift, right? So when Jason retells the events, you know, the day, the details of the day, we go to that field. Once we're back, we're in this kind of new emotional realm, and we're in an anamorphic lens for the rest of the movie. So the whole idea was sort of to, you know, follow their journey, but it was very much thinking about how do we keep the audience with us in a room for, it's, I think, a 75-minute scene, so yeah.
That's
Anyway,
impressive.
Love you. Good to see you.
Thank you for that great question. Who else has a question? The question is about the challenges of this particular subject matter and how he approached it, given all the kind of minefield, and what kind of research did he do?
Yeah, I'm talking to more people now than I did before. I have, honestly, front of my mind is concern and I think a healthy amount of insecurity around the fact that I've never experienced, anything like what is depicted in the movie. I honestly, my daughter was 1.5 when Parkland happened. I had to pull over on the side of the street near like Westwood. I was so overwhelmed listening to this parent, and that never had happened to me. I was 18 when Columbine happened. I know exactly where I was. So this has been, my adult life has been these things, right? But this was so different, I think, as a parent. And I that night was on Amazon ordering books about Columbine and Sandy Hook and Virginia Tech and Aurora and Norway. I mean, it just went on, and I was just sort of obsessed. And then I came across these meetings, and the meetings were something that I thought back to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that I learned about in college in South Africa. And this idea of restorative justice and forgiveness and reconciliation, families of victims with perpetrators. And that was something that had honestly troubled me because I didn't think I was capable of that. I didn't think I could participate in that. And so much of this movie was this sort of personal exploration into what would I do? How could I do this? What would happen to me? So it felt very desperate. I mean, very often this movie felt like I was kind of making it like my life depended on it or something. You know what I mean? So there was an urgency to it, which very often I was cognizant of the minefield and still am. We had the honor of meeting a parent who lost her daughter at Sandy Hook. And it was, it was incredible. I've spoken with a couple gun violence prevention, programs and nonprofits. Now I'm doing more of that. There were a couple people, mostly, if anything, I spoke with journalists. I knew Dave Cullen, who wrote Columbine. I spoke with Matthew Lisiak, who wrote about Newtown. So I had angles that way, but now we seem to be getting, we're getting to experience, actually meeting, survivors. So I hope that sort of roughly answers some of it.
I saw another hand about halfway back. Okay, sir.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna have to answer for this, forever. The cross on the wall we couldn't take down. We asked, and we couldn't take it down. It was bolted to the wall. This Reverend, Mother Leah Colville, who, in many ways, I could credit this entire movie to her because, I was on Google looking up churches. Like I had no idea where to go. And this woman saw me staring through her window and called me in, and it sort of was this kind of destiny there. To me, I mentioned the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I use this quote a lot. So Desmond Tutu, in his book No Future Without Forgiveness, said forgiveness, reconciliation, and reparation are not the normal currency of political discourse. They're far more at home in a religious realm. And to me, this movie had to be in a spiritual setting. I never had any question about it. I was raised Catholic. I'm not religious. I don't go to church. That sort of faded away in my life. But I appreciate many of the values and stories that come out of the Bible. I think it's wise to just sort of dismiss them. So I'm not afraid of the religious connotation. I welcome it, but I think what's really happening is that these four characters are trying to make sense of the unexplainable and find meaning in something that you just can't really ever understand. And I think it is a spiritual pursuit. I think the movie is heavily spiritual, given that it's about life and death and grief and loss and forgiveness. And so, that was my kind of comfort zone in my upbringing, the church. But maybe if I was Jewish, it would have been in a temple. But there was never any question in my mind that it had to have a spiritual element. Now, I try to make a point that the reverend's not there. They're in the parish hall. They're doing sort of human work. It's secular work of just working through their pain. But, you know, spirituality is sort of around the corner, you know. This sort of opportunity to have a relationship with it is sort of nearby, you know. So
It felt entirely right the minute we walked in, that it would be in that room, spirit present, so to speak. Yeah, it was
it's God adjacent. That's what.
God adjacent, he calls it. I push back and say God is always present. However, I like God adjacent. It's nice.
My job is to keep Ann and Fran on a schedule. They're very much in demand this evening. They have another event to go to, so we have to end it here. But I want to thank all of you for being
Yes.
here, for your questions.
Yeah,
And Ann
thank
Dowd
you.
and Fran
Thank
Kranz.
you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you
evening,
so much.
everybody.
Thank you.